The International Court of Justice is set to hand out its landmark ruling in the genocide case that has been brought against Israel by South Africa. In the interim ruling, judges will decide on South Africa's request for emergency measures against Israel. Now, this ruling will not deal with the core accusation of the case, whether or not genocide has occurred, but will focus on the urgent intervention sought by South Africa. The urged measures include an immediate halt to Israel's military operation, which has killed more than 25,000 people so far, according to Gaza health authorities. Hamas has said that if the court issues a ruling calling for a ceasefire in Gaza, they will abide by it and release all Israeli hostages in Gaza, but only if Israel releases all Palestinian prisoners.
First,
if the court in The Hague issues a ruling to ceasefire, the Hamas movement will abide by the ceasefire as long as the enemy abides by it. Second, the movement will release the Zionist prisoners detained by it if the occupying state releases all the Palestinian prisoners detained by it.
Now, this comes as families of hostages continue to step up pressure on Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. Supporters and relatives of hostages staged yet another protest in Tel Aviv, calling for a deal for their release. The protest took place outside Israel's military headquarters, the Kiryat.
My message to the government is this should have been resolved 2 months ago. My brother should have been home 2 months ago. Everyone should have been home 2 months ago. It's time for a deal. They need to be home alive.
Meanwhile, the Israeli military has released more footage of combat troops operating in Gaza's Khan Yunis area. The IDF said its forces have expanded their fighting and are now operating in the Al Amal neighborhood. It added that the troops there encounter terrorists and eliminate them, raid terrorist infrastructures and locate and destroy weapons. US President Joe Biden will soon dispatch one of his most trusted and potentially influential officials to Europe. According to reports, CIA Director Bill Burns will travel for a fourth round of multi-party talks in the hopes of brokering a broadened deal to release the hostages still being held in Gaza. Now, Burns is expected to meet in France with David Barnier, the head of Israel's Mossad intelligence agency, and Qatari Prime Minister Mohammed bin Abdul Rahman Al Thani. Egyptian intelligence chief Abbas Kamel is also said to be involved in the talks. All four have engaged in previous rounds of negotiations aimed at freeing hostages in exchange for an end to hostilities, a principal demand made by the Hamas militants. Now, the CIA has declined to comment on Burns' travel schedule, which is said to be classified. This is not the first time Burns has traveled abroad as part of an effort to secure the release of remaining hostages. In November last year, he visited Doha twice. The CIA director is not the only US top official who is going to hold talks about the ongoing war in Gaza. America's national security advisor is on his way to Thailand to meet China's foreign minister. Jake Sullivan is expected to raise recent Houthi attacks on ships in the Red Sea with Wang Yi. And ahead of Sullivan's meetup with China's Wang Yi, reports suggest Chinese officials have asked their Iranian counterparts to help rein in attacks on ships in the Red Sea by the Iran-backed Houthis. If they are not able to do that, then Tehran may risk harming business relations with Beijing. Now, there are also reports emerging that say that the US has created a channel with Israel to discuss concerns over incidents in Gaza in which civilians have been killed or injured by the Israeli military and about the civilian facilities that have been targeted by the IDF. The channel was set up after a meeting earlier this month between US Secretary of State Anthony Blinken and Israel's war cabinet, during which Blinken expressed the concerns about constant reports of Israeli strikes that either hit humanitarian sites or resulted in large numbers of civilian deaths.